The first thing that we want to do here is to create this TurboClone broadcastable concern that will contain our methods. And we want to make sure that this concern is included in active record base. So let's start with this. And we're going to go within, so app models concerns. We're going to create a TurboClone folder, as everything should be namespaced, and we are going to create the broadcastable concern. So let's create it, module TurboClone broadcastable, and this concern should contain the broadcast append to method. So we're going to add it, and in order for this module to be accessible to all models, what we are going to do is to include this module in active record base, and then as all the models inherit from active record base, all the models will have access to those methods here. So let's create an initializer in the engine. What we're going to say is initializer turbo broadcastable, and we're going to say active support on load, and when active record loads, we are going to include our TurboClone broadcastable module here. So now when we go in the console and we take an article first, and we call this method here, well, it should be defined, and nil is returned because we didn't write any behavior in it, but we already checked that our module, our concern, was successfully included in active record base. So now let's have a look at our sketch here, and the first argument or list of arguments that our method should take is an array of streamables. Why? Because as we demonstrated earlier, these arguments and these arguments here should match in order for the HTML to be broadcasted through the right stream. So what we're going to do is we're going to check how it was made on the stream helper. And on the stream helper, we can see that we can pass here an array or a list of streamables that is going to be converted in array by this little star here. So we're going to name this exactly the same. So that's it for the first argument. Then the second argument is the target argument, because we want to know where in the DOM we want to insert or to append the HTML that will be generated. So we're going to say that there is a target argument, but when the user doesn't provide us with one, what we want to do is we want to guess here. So we're going to create a method that we're going to call broadcast target default, and this method is in charge of creating a sensible default for the target when the user didn't provide us with one, like it's the case when we write it broadcast append to articles. We didn't specify a target, and we want the target to be articles. So what we're going to say, if we have a look at article model name, we can see that there is this plural key here that returns articles, which in our case is what we want. Like we would want the target by default to be articles when we don't specify a target for the article model. So what we're going to say is that we're going to extend here active support concern. We're going to say class methods do broadcast target default, and this should be model name plural. So in our case, it will return articles. And for the instance method, what we're going to do is that we're going to say self.class broadcast target default. So the instance method will delegate to the class method. And let's test that it works as expected. So if I take my article and say broadcast target default, I have articles. And this is a private method, so I won't be able to call it on the instance. But what I'm going to do is use the send keyword to be able to call it, and it returns the expected result. So that's it for our target. And now we need to have some options by default to generate the HTML. So the user of the broadcast append to method can, if he wants to, provide some defaults, like provide the partial name or the locals. But as a creator of the gem, what we want to do is to provide some sensible defaults so that the developer doesn't have to specify the partial name and the locals every time. So what we're going to say is that the developer can provide some rendering options here, rendering, and if he or she doesn't, we are going to create a method that is responsible, broadcast rendering with defaults, that is responsible for taking the rendering here and adding to this rendering the default. So what we're going to say is rendering tap do R, and we are going to add some locals if they are not defined. So we are going to start from the options, from the locals that the user passed, and if he didn't pass any, what we're going to do is start from an empty hash, and we are going to reverse merge here. Why do we reverse merge? It's because we want the options that were provided by the user to stay if they already exist. And if they don't exist, what we're going to merge is model name element to sim, and this will be associated to self here. So let's explain what's going on here. As we said, we want the locals to be equal to article with the associated model, and that's exactly what it's doing. We say that if locals were not provided by the user when calling the method, then what we want to do is we want to create the locals option like this, and this local option will be an empty hash where we will merge the article key, and the article key is generated by model name element to sim, and the article key is associated with the article model, so this one, and in the case of the concern here, this is equal to the self keyword. So the last thing that we want to do is to be able to provide a partial name by default, and we are going to say that this partial name is equal to 2 partial path by default. And if we have a look and we take our first article again, the 2 partial path method already exists, and it returns articles. So it's a method that every model responds to. So here we go. We now are able to specify all of our options, and the next step is to be able to broadcast this HTML. So what we're going to do is that we're going to delegate to the TurboClone streams channel, and this streams channel, we have a broadcast append to method as well, and we will pass the streamables, we will pass the target that we computed or the one that was provided by the developer, and we will pass a broadcast rendering with defaults from the rendering that was provided by the user. So now it's time to implement this method in the TurboClone Streams channel. So we're going to navigate to the Streams channel, and actually we're going to create a new module that we're going to extend, and this module will contain the broadcasting method. So we're going to name it TurboClone Streams Broadcast, like this, and we're going to create the module here, broadcasts.rb. Let's create the module TurboClone Streams Broadcasts, and here we are. So now we can implement this method here. So I'm just going to basically copy paste it. It will be a bit quicker to get the signature. And we're going to say here that those are options. And what's interesting for us is that we want to broadcast action to, and the action that we want to broadcast is actually append here. And we're going to pass, of course, the streamables, and we're going to pass the rest of the options here. So this looks like what we did with the tag builder. In the tag builder, when we had this prepend action, we delegated to this action method, and this action method was in charge of generating the template and creating the HTML here. So we're going to have quite the same behavior actually. So we're going to say broadcast action to, and this method will take the streamables, it will take the action name, it will take the target, and it will take the rest of the rendering options here. And its responsibility is to transform all of these arguments here into this. So the first thing that we have to do is to broadcast to this stream name from article. So we're going to start this way. We're going to say broadcast stream 2, and the first argument will be the array of streamables, and then we are going to pass a content here, and the content will be HTML. But for now, let's only implement the broadcast stream2 method. This broadcast stream2 method receives the streamables, receives the content, and broadcast it over the wire. So we're going to say action cable server broadcast, and we're going to pick the stream name from the streamables here, and we're going to pass the content. So if we have a look at our objective here, that's exactly what we're doing. So we're broadcasting some HTML that we didn't build already, so it's this kind of little dots here, but we're broadcasting it to the stream whose name is generated by the array of streamables that we passed here. So now what we have left to do is to generate the content, and to generate the content from an action, target, and a rendering, we already have a method that we built in the tag builder, and this method is called TurboStreamActionTag. So if we remember well, this method was in charge of generating the TurboStream HTML element with the target and the action, and also generating the template tags with the the template here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to reuse this method here. And in order to reuse it, what we're going to do is that we're going to extract those two methods here. Why those two methods? Because this TurboStream action tag requires the convert to TurboStream DOM ID to work, and we're going to extract them into a module. So we're going to go into app helpers, and we're going to create an action helper, and we're going to name it module turboclone action helper. And what we're going to do is we're going to extract those methods inside it in order to be able to reuse them. So as we extracted those two methods, we will have to include them again for our tag builder to continue to work. And what we want to do in the end is to be able to use them inside our broadcasts module. So we're going to include them here as well. And now what we can do is that we can use the TurboStream action tag method to build our content. So that's what we're going to do, TurboStream action tag. And we're going to pass the action, we're going to pass the target, and we're going to pass the template. And for the template, we're going to say that if we have some rendering, then we can render the format in HTML and pass the rendering. And otherwise, we can pass nil. So let's just have a look at our sketch, and we can say that here template is generated by application controller render. And so this method here, render format, is in charge of doing exactly that. So we're going to create a private method, render format. The format will be HTML, and we will pass the rendering here. And this render format is actually application controller render formats format, and we pass the rendering. So that's it with the implementation. This is a quite complex feature, so we're going to go through it once again in order to make sure that we have everything. So we have a turboclone broadcastable that is here. This turboclone broadcastable contains the broadcast append2 method and is included within active record base. So now every model has access to this method, and this method here has only one essential argument, and this is the streamables here. So when we type this method, the first argument here is the streamables. So it means that we are going to broadcast the HTML to the stream that has the same name inside the view. Once we did this, we also have some more information to get. So we absolutely need a target in order to be able to insert the HTML that is going to be created inside the DOM. And so the target by default is equal to this broadcast target default method that is equal to model name.plural. So in the case of the article model, the default target will be the articles string. So this is working as expected. And the last thing that we have to do is that we have to guess, if not provided by the user, the partial that we want to render and the locals that should go within this partial. Of course, the user can specify some more option in the rendering, but we created this method that is responsible for adding to the rendering provided by the user. And what it adds is it adds some locals, and especially it adds this article hash to the locals here. And the other thing that it adds is the partial name if it doesn't exist already, of course. So we don't want to overwrite something that was provided by the user, but if it doesn't exist, then we're going to add the toPartial path, which in our case is equal to articles article here. And now that we have all the necessary options for our code to work, we need to perform the heavy lifting, and this is going to be performed by the broadcast append to method in the TurboStreams channel. So we extracted this logic inside a module for it to be a bit clearer, but what we're going to do is define this method, and this method broadcast append to, as it is append here, we're going to say that the action should be append. And we of course pass the streamables, but we also pass the target and the rendering here as options. And then we can say that we want to broadcast this action to. So we're going to say action cable server broadcast. We will guess the stream name from the streamables that we passed here, and the content is equal to TurboStream action tag with the action, the target, and the HTML that is guessed from the rendering. So this should work, and we're going to restart our server, to restart our console, to have one test. So if I refresh the page of the dummy app here, what we're going to do is that we're going to create an article.create, and we're going to say content should be equal to something different, so we're going to say action cable. And when we save this article, we can see that the HTML just appeared in the DOM. I didn't refresh the page to do this, and if we inspect the console, what we can see is that the article's article partial was rendered and was broadcasted to the article's stream, which is what we have in the DOM here. So I know that this was a really huge video, but it will get easier in the next one when we will create the other methods, and then we will add some tests.